72 Radio, the voice, views, and visions of the collective.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Lynn Young, and with me are my colleagues, Dr. Stela Susac-Pavic and Rebecca Shaw, hypnotherapist, and we welcome you to Healthy View, Healthy You on this wonderful Valentine's Day. All of us say Happy Valentine's to you. And because it is Valentine's Day, we're going to talk about the heart today, the aspects of the heart in our lives, what it is to us physically, mentally, emotionally, where we might see the heart, if we're conscious of it, what might be happening to the heart in history, and how we might envision the heart as we go forward in our lives. The heart carries many aspects of living, responsibilities to us as humans, and can bring us daily joy, whether we are aware of it or not. We see the heart in nature. We can see it in plants and in rocks. And actually, I brought a rock to show you, this beautiful rock that came out of a mine in the shape of a heart, and it was just polished. So I keep that heart close to me to signify nature and having it as part of the earth close to me. We can see it in clouds. If we look up, every once in a while we might see a cloud in the shape of the heart. And we see it in flowers. They materialize out of nowhere. All of a sudden, we might just see a heart. Perhaps that's an indication that we consider if something's going on in our heart or with our heart and how we feel. It comes into our daily lives in relationships. So relationships with family, with loved ones, with our colleagues, with people we meet in the grocery store, with drivers on the road. Our heart is part of all of that interaction with life and all of the people that we meet. From a scientific standpoint, the heart is the body's pump. At least this is how I look at it. I'm going to leave a little bit of that to Stella when she comes in to talk. But it pumps blood through our body and brings us oxygen so we can breathe, we can live, and we can thrive. Without our hearts, our bodies would stop functioning. So it's a major pump. It's a major aspect of what keeps us going physically. From an emotional standpoint, though, it's known as the foundation for us as humans for love. It is where we have our emotional base. And, for many years, and even now, we might just have to think of it as being there because there's really not a proof of on a daily basis that love is situated in the heart, but we think of it that way. And if something is going on with us in a relationship, sometimes our hearts hurt. And I think that Stella or Rebecca can speak to that as well. In indigenous stories around the globe, so I'm going to shift a little bit and tell you a little bit about what's happening with the change in our worlds. Many of you may be aware that time is moving, or feels like time is collapsing and moving very rapidly, and we're still trying to do as much as we have always tried to do in the same amount of time, but it's taking us more effort to stay within that time period. Well, indigenous stories globally have said that we are moving into a new world, into a situation where our cells are changing and we're becoming new humans. And in the last 15 to 20 years, the heart has been viewed as changing as well. Does the heart have a different role than just the pump in the body? And actually, metaphysically, it's being thought that the heart is the seat of the spirit and the soul. That in fact, they're discovering, or there has been discovered, that the heart actually has synapses in it that look like the synapses in the brain. So it's controversial. Some people are saying, well, then the heart has a mind of its own. And some in the scientific community say, no, 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 those synapses have to do with the nervous system and the muscles, and they will direct the nervous system and the muscles, but they won't initiate thought. Well, there are some in the metaphysical arena who say that the brain actually is activated by the heart, that the pineal gland, which is a small gland at the bottom of our skull, which science actually thought was irrelevant up until about 15 or 20 years ago, actually works with our immune system and works with the heart to activate the brain. So those three together are vital parts of how we function and may bring us a different way that we work as a new human, as cells that are giving us a different way of being in the world. So on Valentine's Day, it gives us something to consider, that when we thought that the heart was just a major pump to us, but maybe it's something else. I've certainly always wondered where our spirit is housed and our soul is housed, thinking it was throughout my body and in my brain. You know, I always would think about it, thinking that I activated or initiated activities from my brain. Now to think perhaps that I'm activating them from my heart is a totally different way of being. Do I feel it? Can I feel good or bad or joy? And once again, it's my thoughts and my words that probably manifest how I'm feeling and how I'm working with my heart. So just in the last 2 weeks or so, I've been working with my heart differently, wondering if I can feel strongly in my heart about something, if it will manifest out in my daily life. And some has and some hasn't. So it's a new experiment that I have. And I think that it's still very important to recognize that the heart does pump our blood through our system and gives us oxygen. There are many different ways to address the heart and to work with the heart through mental and emotional and physical programs. And we'll address some of those programs as we go forward today. But I think that what I'll do is see if Stella has something you want to add about, just speak to the heart, Stella. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day as well as Ash Wednesday to all of my Catholic friends. It's a day in which we celebrate the love on many levels, including the cognitive understanding and the time that we were supposed for the next 40 days to contemplate ourselves, try to change the bad habits that we have, try to divert our thinking toward the positive thinking, toward the finding the joy in the time of deepest despair for all human beings and for us as well. So heart as a pump, as a muscle, this doesn't stand in the science anymore. We know that there is a two-way communication. We have been taught that heart is responding to orders sent by brain in the form of neural signals. But actually, it's not commonly known that heart actually sends more signals to the brain that brain send to the heart. And they have a significant effect of the brain function as well, as you say, influencing emotional processing as well as a high cognitive faculties like attention, perception, memory, problem solving. So in other words, not only does the heart respond to the brain, but the brain constantly responding to the heart. And there is extensive research done on that for the last 40 years. What the scientists were doing, they even find a huge number of the neural cells in the heart. That is very interesting to know. We did find also significant amount of the neural cells in our abdominal system. You know, when you are in the lab and everybody is grabbing the stomach, And because there is neural cells over there with a function still to be researched and find out how that connection, neurohormonal connection, is working. So the research is still ongoing, but the most important things that I would love to mention here is what we can do about that knowledge, of the emotional heart rhythm connection. So let me share with you my experience this summer when I often find solitude in the nature. So by walking through the wood, I heard that there is some music going on, drums. And they told me that there is a festival of the drummers. They are celebrating something called Rhythm of the Heart. Immediately, I was thinking, oh my God, that's something boring, because as a physician, I know how Rhythm of the Heart was supposed to be. Tap, 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 tap. So I didn't want to go and listen anything like that. But what I was surprised as I was walking and then later on approaching the musicians, I realized that they're actually playing different rhythms of the heart that I didn't pay attention before on it. And I was then start to pay attention. Oh my God, they are in the rhythm of the heart that is running. They are in the rhythm of the heart that is sleeping. Then they produce the rhythm of the heart when person is dancing or loving. So then I realized, oh my God, look at endless amount of the rhythms that we are actually producing. And they did affect my comprehension as well as a cognitive approach to the heart, and brought me to the further research how actually we may use that knowledge to improve our health, improve exactly that emotional heart connection. We know that with the different feelings, we have a different rhythm of the breathing, and we producing different rhythm of the heart. What I teaching my friends right now, and occasionally have a time to address this with my patients, I ask them now, try to cognitively recognize what is your pattern of the breathing, depending of the emotions that they experience in that moment. Usually it's a fear from the seeing the doctor and being afraid of some diagnosis, or overall that white coat can cause some discomfort. But when they are in the peace, I actually telling them right now, remember what is your pattern of the breathing. Remember, actually pay attention how is your heart beating. Try to cognitively remember that piece of those two important sympathetic autonomic functions, sympathetic and parasympathetic. So when you find yourself in the excruciating emotional reactions, try by pattern of the breathing. And there are people who can and there is a name for them, I forgot, I may recall later on, who can actually by cognitively approach to the rhythm of the heart change their own rhythm of the heart. This is that two-way communication that is important for our listener to understand and pay attention in order to improve their well-being overall, in order to recognize emotions that are destructive to us and use them as a building block for something that we want to achieve. Everybody wants to achieve peacefulness and productivity, and increase perception, increase memory, and increase problem solving. And the key is in cognitive recognition of what we're feeling, and then following with a pattern of the breathing, as well as for those skill in that heart rhythm. There is a huge study. Heart rhythm is exceptionally important. Science shows up, there is, excuse me, I will just divert a little bit on the Stanford heart study. and the modern way of the transferring information by Apple Watch, in which Stanford actually providing free Apple Watch application where people heart rhythm has been recorded, and then they are collecting a significant amount of the data. But those people would get a direction on the iPhone Watch to move because heart rhythm is going too low, or they will actually have instruction to increase the deepness of the breathing to slow down or increase heart rate. So the science is going to show us a little bit more clear pathway on which we actually can sustain better emotional balance in connection with that heart rhythm patterns and emotion. It is very important to recognize two different mental states: coherence and relaxation. Coherence and relaxations in the connection with the heart needs to be recognized. When we are relaxed, we are in the state of not thinking, and our heart rate is on the lower scale. What we want to achieve is a coherence. It's a mental alertness, being available to intuitively recognize from the body language to any other aspect of the communication when and how somebody wants to convey information to us, recognize truthfulness, recognize our negative feedback that they have maybe based in something that happened to us in the past, so overcome that in us. Coherence is a state of the alertness. Coherence is a state of the mental sharpness. Is a pattern that we need to very, very clearly recognize from the relaxation in the term that science right now recognize relaxation state of the not thinking, although I'm sure Rebecca will have something to add about that in her presentation. So let's go and change this scientific approach to the lady who is master and commander in recognizing that relaxation, coherence in her way of the working. Rebecca.
Thank you. Well, I think where I'd like to start is just the interesting fact that when I went into hypnotherapy 24 years ago, I never really imagined that people would come to me asking me for help with affairs of the heart. But some people do get stuck where they feel like literally obsessed with someone. Their heart is with someone still who they know isn't on the logical level healthy for them as a relationship is concerned. So people would literally ask me, can you hypnotize me to forget this person? And just so you know, it doesn't really work like that. You can't hypnotize someone to forget, but you can change your thoughts and your ideas about a person so that they don't continue to pull at your heartstrings in the same way. And fast forward 20 some years later to this past year, I came across some new research that I just absolutely want to share with everyone because it's been a game changer for me and my clients who I've shared this information with. And it's about relationships and affairs of the heart. And it's based on, in psychology, a theory they call attachment theory. Attachment theory is basically how we bond with our parents or our caregivers when we're young. And those ways of bonding can be healthy. And if someone has a healthy bond with their caregivers or their primary caregivers, it's called a secure attachment. And typically children who have secure attachment, they need attention from their caregivers, their parents, but they can go out in the world and do things and be away from the people they love and still feel secure and being out there in the world on their own. And then there are two other primary attachment styles, as they're called. And the second one is the avoidant. And typically an avoidant is that person who gives you the mixed messages, who might say, I love you, and then they don't show up for your birthday. Or they say they're going to do something, or they're giving you messages, but their actions contradict those messages. That's probably the biggest thing with it. Now, these people, when they were children, typically had something, a rupture in that attachment with their caregiver. Something traumatic may have happened. But I want to preface that with, when you're a child, you have the mind of a child. So things can be traumatic or upsetting to a child that aren't to an adult. So anyway, you have this avoidant attachment type of person. And then you have the third type of attachment style, which they call the anxious attachment person. And this is the person that I think I tend to see in my office. And this is someone who, when they were little, they didn't feel a strong connection with the parent or the caregiver in such a way that made them feel safe in the world. So when their caregiver wasn't there for them in the way that they needed, nurturing, assistance, support, etc., that type of child would tend to be anxious. And interestingly, after reading a book I'll recommend in a moment, I come to call that type of person not so much an anxious attachment style, but a very sensitive attachment style. These are people who are so sensitive to the barometer in a relationship. They're the type of person that can tell when you're in a bad mood without you saying anything. They may be the type of person that tends to take it personally if you're in a bad mood. They're really, really sensitive to the moods and the energy of people around them. And then what's fascinating is that the two styles that are the worst for each other are attracted to each other, and that's the avoidant style and the anxious attachment style, which I call the sensitive. And what's this book that I'll mention now, it's called Attached, and it's by two researchers. The one name that you need to look up if you want to order it online is Amir, A-M-I-R, Levine, L-E-V-I-N-E. And it's the latest research on understanding attachment theory to help you with relationships. And what they studied thousands of couples and what makes them work and what causes people to have these issues. And what happens when the avoidant style connects with the anxious style, they do this dance of intimacy. They do this dance back and forth where the avoidant will dance forward, and then the anxious will say yes, 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 and then the avoidant says, whoa, that's too much, I need my space, and then they pull away, and then the anxious feels anxious. So it can be this crazy making type of situation. But what's really great about this book is it explains to you that if you are an anxious, sensitive type of person, you need to understand your true nature. It's not bad. We're taught, if you watch all of the dating YouTube videos now, they try to teach you the style that works for getting the avoidant type of person. Oh, don't text too much, play hard to get, be evasive, blah, blah, blah. Well, that works if you want to attract an avoidant. But if you're a sensitive person, you're not going to be happy in the long run attracting someone like that. And so this book is fantastic. It will explain to you. You take a quiz to figure out if you're the secure, the avoidant, or the anxious, sensitive type of style. Some people can be anxious avoidant. We call that the unicorn. But typically what the research says is 50% of the people out there are secure attachers. And what that means is that they are looking for love. They're looking for a healthy relationship. They want to connect. They want to work through difficulties when you hit those bumps in the road in your relationships. And what's fascinating about it is they recommend in the book that both the avoidant type of style matches up with a secure person, because the secure person is okay with those times apart. And then the anxious style needs to really be with a secure person, because the secure person will make the anxious sensitive person feel okay if they're needing more affection or needing more reinforcement in the relationship. So I am telling you, if you read this book, if you're having, if you notice that you see patterns in your relationships, these affairs of the heart where you keep getting your heart broken again and again, or you don't understand. I had a woman in the other day who is an avoidant attachment style. And she's like, why do I get into these love relationships and then I start picking them apart? I start criticizing them. I'm hypercritical. That's a sign of the avoidant. The anxious style, they're hypersensitive. So when you put two people like that together, it is a recipe for a really bad movie on the Hallmark Channel, I think. So, but if you understand your nature and what you need, then I think you could go forward in life really changing the patterns that you've had in relationships. And if you're married and you're already or in a relationship that's already good, but you want it to be better, wow, I definitely still recommend reading this book. And it will explain the nature of who we are and why we operate the way we do, and how to honor that, and how to really get from your partner what you need, so that we can all be more secure in our love relationships.
Well, that's really great information. And you had mentioned that book to me, and I'm going to go look at it now. It does give insights. And I think what I find today is everything feels more intense. People have full schedules, and they're going from one thing to another, and they're perhaps not listening as much as would be helpful. So I'd like to talk a little bit about listening to our hearts and paying attention to them, because when there's an emotional situation, our hearts will speak to us. Very much like what you were saying, Rebecca, is that one might feel anxious, or might feel like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that, and really overreact to it based on our nature, what we've created over time. But in life, we often have little time to think, and we have to make that time. And I think when we start to feel things, my understanding is there really are only two emotions. Something feels good or it doesn't feel good. And if we don't feel well, if for some reason we're sick, that's different. That's a physical thing. We have to address that. But if we're feeling emotional, or if we're feeling badly about something, then you can probably go to the heart and identify the basis of why you feel that way. Is it a person? Is it a situation? Is it something that we can change? Yes, we can always change our situation. We always have choice. We're never stuck. I think that's something my mother always said, is you always have a way to change what you're doing. Even if you think there's no way to change this or that, we can always change ourselves, and we can always change our situations. And we can choose to look at things in a positive light, and see how we learn from them, how we might appreciate what we are doing in our own lives, and how things can be blended into our lives so that we can move forward in a very positive way. And I think that's true, even when we're talking with our children, and I have adult children, if they're going through something, then listening to them and paying attention to them and sending really loving, warm thoughts from our hearts goes a long way to help them address the situation. It's difficult. So, for instance, my daughter's longtime cat passed away about 3 weeks ago, and I hadn't realized, or had forgotten how many places Barbie had moved with Caroline from Phoenix to Portland to Toronto. I mean, that cat has traveled North America, and it was very effective. It affected her a lot when the cat passed away, and I was sorry about that. And I realized I needed to listen to her and listen to what that meant to her. And my heart felt lighter and more connected to Caroline when I was listening to her. So I think listening is a really important part of our daily lives. If we're running and rushing and you're taking care of 3 or 4 children to get them out the door in the morning, or if you're by yourself and you're thinking, what am I doing today? And what if your day doesn't have anything on your schedule? What if you have a wide open day? Then sitting quietly for a moment, breathing, the way y'all were talking about taking deep breaths or doing something for yourself, like going for a walk or paying attention to your body, might bring up something very exciting you'd like to do. All of a sudden, the thought might come to you, call so-and-so to get together for lunch, or read this book that was just recommended, and it might totally open a channel for you to understand a whole different way of being. So listening is important, and I think our hearts tell us a lot about listening, how they feel, particularly if they don't feel good. Then pay attention, because you may need a doctor, or you may be able to change what you're doing right there in the moment. I mean, have you all had that experience with, are you paying attention to your hearts?
I was thinking what Rebecca says, how different kind of the psychological background we may have that may trigger in the certain life situation different response. It is interesting that 3 of us women, even with a different theme that we have every time, somehow we always talk about relationship because it's exceptionally feminine side, and it's important to us. And we need to recognize that our men are thinking a little differently. They may have all of that kind of the psychological background, but they do not talk, they do not read, they do not listen as much as the woman. They do not work on that psychological part of themselves because it's a little less important, but it's causing tremendous clashes in the relationship left and right. So how the men are thinking, I think they are into the woman or they are not. And that's the everything. If they are in the woman, they will cross the Atlantic Ocean. If they are not, doesn't matter how pretty, how intelligent, how spiritual, or whatever you are, it's not about you. So that's what I wanted to send to our young listeners. It's not about you. You need to work on yourself, find your emotional flows and strength, tweet them, watch up on the recognizing your emotional state, and when you see that you are in a heated situation or unproductive situation due to your emotional and heart state, be sure that you send a message to everybody, put that down, and let's go talk about that when a ratio or brain is emotionally to the highest level of the functioning. And that's not when bad emotions are coming and striking. There is that dual reaction. So ladies, doesn't matter. He is into you or it's not into you, and that's all. If he is not giving you what you believe that you deserve and that you are the most important subject together with your kids to him, I think that you are wasting your time, because that's how it is. So from that standpoint, this is the best things that your irrational part, that I did meet lots of women that they are stuck in the relationship. They are just not, they are not building them up for the feeling good. So recognize them, put them down, discuss, talk. Sometimes those avoidance person will go back. Give each other time, give each other space. And we, anxious part of the people, we need to realize how attached we are on those, a sensation that we're feeling from everybody on us, and make some border. What Rebecca a long time says, I always try to recall that and share with everybody. We are not supposed to go down, ladies, anymore. We waiting up and waiting for everybody to come down, cover us. So that's for your heart, guys. Know yourself, know your value, and move forward with the love.
Yes, that's so critical, Stella. That was well said, and we do keep coming back to our relationships, and particularly our partner relationships. And it is most important to love ourselves first, and then also to go out with that love to the world, to greet whoever comes to us, and recognize our value. Right, Rebecca?
Absolutely. It is so important. Know yourself, know your value. It reminds me of a quote. One of my favorite quotes about love is by Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet. And he said, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." And I think one of the barriers we build against love is not valuing ourselves. And I heard a man tell me once why he was attracted to women, and this man seems to be very attractive to other women. And he said, "I'm attracted to a woman's energy." And I think what he meant by that is their aliveness, their personality, how they, if you're comfortable in your own skin, if you value yourself, you give off a different energy than if we're feeling insecure and if we've kind of built these barriers over our heart. So if we want to receive love and feel loved and feel valued, we have to, in my work, in my office, is work on clearing what it is that's blocking oneself from attracting that love, from feeling lovable, from receiving love. Many people are really wonderful at giving love and being the giver and being the caretaker and being the one compassionate and caring for others, but they'll have a really strong inner critic. They might not, a lot of people aren't even comfortable receiving a compliment. So that's just one little hot tip today, that if you receive a compliment, take that in. If someone asks you out, I'll just speak to women today. If a man asks you out and you're not interested, but be flattered, because that's a compliment. Someone's interested in you. They're finding you attractive or valuable, and that doesn't mean you have to say yes. In fact, I just told my daughter this tip, who's in high school, is, it's like someone saying you have a nice car. You can say thank you, but they don't get to drive your car. So taking in compliments is a really healthy way to start taking in love and taking in that energy, and not just making it a one-way street. To clear those barriers that we have to owning our value and receiving love is super important, because there's people out there that have people in their lives that really love them, but they don't feel it. They don't sense it because of their own inner blocks that may have been created earlier in time because of being hurt around love.
It's interesting that you say that, and we're talking about partnership relationships, but our children are really important, and our parents, and how we express ourselves to them is really important. When we say, "Oh, I love you, love you, love you," it can become rote. And so I think that it's also important to make sure when we say it that we either touch somebody, or we look them in the eye, or we give someone a hug and express it in two ways rather than just the words. I mean, I'm thinking about children and parents, and how we show our family how much we care about them. So doing little things for them is valuable. I love the idea of touching someone, putting your hand on their arm, or holding their hand, or giving them a kiss on their cheek or something. And so today, on a Valentine's Day, I think it's really important to show your children that they're important to you. And I'll go do that with my elderly mother too. My children are far away. I think there's value in that. I mean, actually, Stella, you have children far away as well.
I do. I do and the most important thing, Len, that you mention it is to listen them and advise them at the best of your knowledge that you have for those young minds that are going through the growing pain, as we all did, emotionally, physically, spiritually, on any level, to give them some tools, to recognize all of the things that we're talking about, to use the prescriptions, physical prescriptions for the exercising, nutrition, breathing, heart rhythm, recognizing emotion. So I do talk with those girls and boys quite a bit, and I know that you lady are preparing some beautiful love poem, but I would love to share with you what is the poem of the love that is somehow is inspirational for the last 15, 20 years of my life. So I'm going to read with my broken English to you. I will be a little slower, but that's what I want to share. It says, if I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have a love, I'm noisy gong or clenching cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove the mountains, but do not have a love, I'm nothing. If I give away all of my possession, and if I had over my body so that I'm boast, but do not have a love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love is not envious or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoice in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends, but as the prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease, and for knowledge, it will come to the end. For we know only part, and we prophesy only in the part, but when the complete comes, the partial will come to the end. When I was child, I spoke like a child, and I talked like child. I reasoned like child. When I become adult, I put an end to the childish way. For now, we see in the mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully now. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of this is a love.
I love that, Stella. That's actually beautiful. Thank you. Is that from the Bible? Do you know?
It is St. Paul Corinthians.
Yeah. I thought so because it's beautiful.
It is leading me. Yeah.
And it does speak to us. And actually, I love that we've all brought up poets, Rumi, and then the Bible. And I actually have a poem too that I'd like to share. So it's our day of creativity and poetry. But on Valentine's Day, I think it's very appropriate to share these things that have affected us and that we carry with us. You might remember there was a movie in the last 5 or 7 years where one of the main characters memorized an E. Cummings poem, and I loved it so much. I've sort of taken it into me, and I share it with different people and my children from time to time. But it's called "I Carry Your Heart With Me." So I'd like to actually read that to you as well. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I'm never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my truth. And that you are whatever a moon has always meant, whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root, and the bud of the bud, and the sky of a tree called life. It grows higher than soul can hope, and mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart.
What's the name of the song? Of the
It's called
poet?
I Carry Your Heart With Me, and it's by E.E. Cummings. And you know, with all of our poetry and our thoughts from ancient texts and across time, we really all value how important the heart is. And we offer to you today to carry your heart, carry others' hearts in your heart. And if you see someone who could be lifted by your saying hello, say hello and share your heart with them today, this Valentine's Day. And with all of that, we will say goodbye. And ladies, we'll get together the second Wednesday of next month, March, and we'll look forward to it.
You just gave me the song that I'm going to say Happy Valentine for somebody I love. Thank you very much.
Oh, good. No, you're welcome. So happy Valentine's Day to all of you. And great. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful month. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.